Hiya folks, welcome back to the Small Business Toolbox and welcome back to episode 9 in this series about how to create your own WordPress website. If you've done everything that we've talked about so far, you should have a website all up and running. But there's a couple of things that we're going to need to cover off in terms of security and data backups as well. We're going to do data backups in the next video because it's going to be quite a big topic in its own right. Today, I just want to chat about security and making sure your WordPress installation is nice and secure so that it doesn't get hacked into and you don't accidentally lose your entire website. Don't panic, there's just a few little things we need to tweak with the installation to get everything nice and safe and secure. But you do absolutely need to take this topic seriously. I'll talk about what a WordPress hacking attempt looks like in a future video. For now, let's head over to the WordPress admin console and have a look at what we need to change. For all this to make sense, you have to understand how are people likely to try and hack into your website. There's essentially 4 pieces of information that could get used by hackers to try and break into your website and cause damage. That is your main login URL, which is just your website /wp-admin, which is basically the same for any WordPress website, your username, or your email address, and your password. So if you can keep all those 4 things hidden away from the public as much as possible, then your website is much less likely to get hacked. There are many other things that we can do to harden the website, but really these 4 things are the core elements of what you need to lock down. We're not going to talk about passwords too much. You are just going to use strong passwords all the time. Use the password suggestion tool within WordPress to generate a password for you. That will probably come up with a password way more secure than anything that you would come up with yourself. You're not going to tell anyone the email address associated with your admin user, so hopefully that'll be relatively safe. But the username is a thing that you do need to think about because the username is shown against every article that you publish on WordPress. So if I go and visit any old random article, and guess what? This bit at the top here, Andy Mac, is the username of the person who wrote that article. So I could potentially just copy that, go to the login page, put Andy Mac in there, and then half the job is done for me. So you want to keep your admin user as hidden as possible. You don't want anyone to ever find out your admin username. So let's get logged into the dashboard and I'll show you some of the tweaks we're going to make to harden your WordPress installation. So easy bit first. We briefly touched on this in the last video. We talked about installing a plugin called WPS Hide Login. And if you've already installed it and activated it, you will probably find out that you'll not be able to log in to your website through the normal WP admin link anymore. By default, it'll just change it to, I think, /login. But once you've installed and activated that plugin, dead straightforward. All you do, you go to settings, and it's actually in your general settings. Scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see this new WPS Hide Login section at the bottom here. And by default, it'll probably change it to something like just /login, but I would suggest you change it to something a little bit more complicated than that. Completely up to you what you use. For the purposes of showing you it, I'm just going to change it to test admin login. I'm going to do save changes. Don't forget what you've changed it to, otherwise you won't be able to log in. So now if I log out, and if I go to the normal WP admin page to log in, you'll see we get a page cannot be found error. So now to log in, I've typed in the test-admin-login, and that takes me to the login page. So you can't even get to that page unless you know what you've changed the login page to. Worst case scenario, if you forget what you've changed the login page to, you're going to need to disable the WPS Hide Login plugin. I'm not going to go into how to do that in this video. If you just Google how to manually disable a WordPress plugin, you'll work it out. But you basically need to go into the back end through either your SiteGround control panel or through FTP, and you can do it through that. The next tiny little tweak we're going to make, if you just go into settings and general again, if you've still got your admin email address shown in here, I would suggest just changing that to your contact email address, because sometimes that admin email address might end up getting shown to users and you don't want that happening. So I would suggest you just change it to your contact email address. You will receive an email to confirm the change, so make sure you're using an email account that you can definitely get access to, because you'll not be able to change it easily without doing that. Now if you just click on the discussion tab, I think we did cover this in earlier videos, but if not, just double check that you're not allowing people to comment on posts and articles. Generally, I would advise you leave that switched off. It opens a whole can of worms, giving people access to your website to create their own user accounts and things like that. Personally, I like to have these top 3 default article settings just switched off. And because we're not going to allow people to comment on articles, everything down here becomes irrelevant. So we've talked about changing your admin login URL. We've talked about keeping your admin email address secure and hidden. And we've talked about using secure passwords. But what are we going to do about this username that's shown at the top of every article that you publish on your website? Well, do you remember when we were creating the email accounts that you were going to use with WordPress, and we created an admin email address and we created a user email address? Well, this is where we're now going to make use of that user email address, and I'll show you how. So all you need to do, click on the Users tab down the left-hand side, and at the minute you should just have your admin user that you created when you first installed WordPress. So all we're going to do, we're going to click Add New to add a new user, and this is going to be your public-facing user account. So this is going to be the user account that we're going to use for every article on your website. No one's going to see your admin user ever, hopefully. So for the username, pick anything you want, but don't make it a real name. Make it just a completely random name. I'm going to call mine John Smith. Don't call yours John Smith, call it something else. Just don't make it your own name or a name that anyone could obviously guess. In the email address, this is going to be your user email address that you created earlier. I think I called mine user-Andy. Then for the first name and last name, all I'm going to call it is contributor user. You can call it whatever you like. This will make a little bit more sense once we get a bit further on. Click show password and do your usual kind of copying and pasting of the password to keep note of the password that you're setting up for this user account. You don't need to send an email to notify them of the new account, so just untick that box. And you're going to change the role to contributor. And then just click Add New User. Then just click on the new user account that you've created to edit it. And just scroll down to where it says nickname. And you're going to change that nickname to the name that you want to be seen on your website. So this could be your own name or a nickname or the site name. So I might call it Small Business Toolbox. You can literally give it any nickname you want, but just remember that this is what people are going to see on your site. And you're just going to change this little bit here that says display name publicly as, and change it to the name that you've just typed in that box there. Once you've done all that, just scroll down to the bottom, click update user, and if we go back to users, you should now have your main admin user that you originally set up, and you should have this new contributor user as well. So what we want to do is get any posts on the website to use the contributor details rather than the admin user details. And that's really, really straightforward to do. I'll show you it just on this article here. So I'm going to change this one from Andy Mac to this new one, which should come up as Small Business Toolbox. It's dead straightforward. So I'm just going into posts, and I think it's this one here. I'm just going to click on it. And on any post or page, you should be able to change the author of that post or page. And it's normally all the way at the bottom of the page or post. If you haven't got that author box there, scroll all the way back up to the top and just click on this little screen options tab and make sure the author box is ticked. So right to the bottom, author, and all we're going to do is change that to the new account that you set up, which for me showing you this is this Small Business Toolbox one. Click update, and now if we go on to that article, you see where it says Andy Mack here at the minute. I'm going to press F5 to refresh the page. And now you can see it's changed to Small Business Toolbox. So there we go. Users can't guess your login name anymore because we've changed it to a nickname on an account that doesn't even have administrative rights to do anything dangerous on your website. So what you need to do is for every single post and page on your website is change it to that new contributor user. You shouldn't be showing your admin user anywhere. And there's a quick way of doing that. You don't have to click on each one. All you need to do is quick edit and just change the author here over to the new account that you've just set up. And do update. Exactly the same for pages. Find the page you want to change, click quick edit, and change the author from the default admin author over to the contributor user that you've just created. And click update. Now, one other small tweak we're going to make while we're in here, just click on your users tab and then just click onto the admin user, your main admin logon that you would normally use for logging into the website. Just scroll down to where you've got the username and all that sort of thing. And all you're going to do, you're going to give it a fake first name and last name, anything you want. Don't make it your own name. For the purposes of showing you this, I'm just going to call mine Joe Blogs. Don't call yours Joe Blogs, and I'm not going to be leaving mine as Joe Blogs. And then in the nickname box, give it another totally different nickname. I'm going to just put Ben Smith as a totally made up name, and then change the bit that says display name publicly as, and change that to be the nickname. So once we're done with all of this, you should be fairly well protected because all of your posts and pages are going to be against the contributor user that was set up. So they're not even going to be registered against this admin user. Then if anything does use the admin user details, then hopefully it'll end up being the display name, which is the nickname, that'll get shown. So hackers shouldn't be able to work out your login username from the nickname. On the off chance that anything displays the first name and last name, that's going to be another different name to confuse the hackers. And then ultimately, the actual username for the account, nobody's going to know that apart from you. Or at least that's the plan. As per usual, once you've done all this, scroll down to the bottom and click Update Profile. Ultimately, once you're done with all of this, you should always have your contributor user that has all of your posts associated with it and all of your pages associated with that contributor user. And you should have your administrator user that has 0 posts associated with it and none of your pages should be registered against that username. It's always worth coming back to your users section from time to time and checking that you've only got your one administrator user and one contributor user. Because a sure sign of a website that's been hacked is if another mysterious admin user appears in here that you've never created. You should only ever have that one administrator user. If you do open your site up to comments, or you've got an e-commerce plugin of some description where users can create accounts on your website, then this will start to fill up with all of those accounts. Don't worry about that too much. As long as you've just got your one administrator account that you know about, things should be pretty safe. Now, you're generally always going to be logging on to your website with your main admin user account because that gives you complete control to do absolutely anything. What you can do is set up Other user accounts, for example, if you have a team of people editing your website for you, you can create other contributor accounts and give people access to that, and you can do much less damage to the site with a contributor account than you can with an admin account, obviously. But if you're just logging on with your own admin account and creating posts and pages, just make sure you always change the author to your contributor user instead of your admin user. So just go to Add New, put your article together as per usual, scroll down to the bottom, and on the author box, change it to your contributor user before you click save. And always remember to do that for every page and post that you create. It should be pretty obvious because you can see in the post list and page list who the author was of every post and page on your site. So just make sure that none of those are showing against your main admin user. One other change we're going to make today, just to lock things down a little bit with WordFence, is just to make sure if anyone does try to hack into your website, they just get blocked. So on the left hand side, go down to WordFence and go to Firewall. Click on all Firewall options, and it's these brute force protection bits here that you want to change. So obviously make sure you've got brute force protection switched on. Brute force basically means where people just keep on trying and trying and trying different passwords and usernames until they happen to get in. And bots on the internet can do that hundreds of times a second. So they will eventually guess your username and password if you don't block hackers from attempting to break into your website. So the normal thing to do is just lock people out after they've got the password wrong more than a certain number of times. And I can't remember what the defaults are in WordPress. I think it's about 20 attempts or something. You don't need to give people anywhere near 20 attempts to get the username and password right. So what I do is I change the lockout after how many logon failures to 5. So basically, if you get the wrong username and password 5 times, then you'll be locked out. How many forgot password attempts do you want to allow people to have? So in other words, they click the little forgot password link and it sends them an email. Again, I've set that to 5, which I think is more than enough, to be honest. And then I'm setting the count failures over what period to 4 hours and the amount of lockout time to 4 hours as well. So basically, if you get the username and password wrong on more than 5 attempts, you'll be locked out of the site for 4 hours. And then 4 hours later, you can come back and try it again. Then if you scroll a bit further down, this immediately blocks the IP of people who are trying to log in with a particular username. This is a list that you can build up over time. I would start off by just adding admin into here because everyone will try logging in with the username admin and your username isn't admin, so you're safe to block anyone attempting to hack into your website with the username admin. So all you do is type admin into there and press enter, and it adds it into this list of failed login attempts, and basically the person who tries to hack into your site will immediately get blocked. If you just click back to Firewall and then scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see all of the successful and failed login attempts to your site. The successful one should generally always be your IP address, as I say, unless you're allowing users to log into your site for other reasons, like if you've got e-commerce plugins, you will see people logging in when they make purchases and you'll see their IP address getting recorded for security. But the thing that you need to keep an eye on is this failed one here. So if you just click the failed button, and if you keep on seeing a particular username that isn't a username that you use cropping up. So for example here, someone keeps trying to log in with the username smallbusinesstoolbox.uk. So all I would do is take that username. It's not a valid username. It's not used anywhere for logging in, but let's just block everyone who attempts to log in with that. They're obviously hackers. It's all happening around the same time. Lots of different IP addresses. They're probably going in through a different network of VPNs around the globe. Just block all of them. So all I would do is copy that to the clipboard, go into all firewall options and just add it in there. You can see I've already got it in the list anyway. And anyone who attempts to log into the site with that username will be immediately blocked. Whatever you do, don't accidentally block your own IP address. If you're not sure how to work out what your own IP address, just go to Google and type in "what is my IP" and it will tell you. So you should find the IP address that's shown when you search for what is my IP is the same as your successful login attempt IP address here. Do bear in mind that your own IP address will change from time to time, so it's not always going to be exactly the same address, probably. One other thing that I would suggest you check within WordFence is just to make sure that your alerts for security breaches are going to get sent to an email account that you do check regularly. So just go into All Options, General WordFence Options, and you'll see the option there, Where to Send Email Alerts, and just make sure you've got an actual email account there that you check all the time, because this should then automatically send you an email whenever an admin login occurs on your website. And obviously that should always be you, but if you ever get that email coming through and you haven't logged onto your website, then you need to take urgent action. The first thing to do in that situation is to change all of your passwords. If you've done everything we've talked about so far, the chances of your account being hacked are slim to nil. SiteGround especially take security really seriously. I was actually on a different web host, and when I migrated over to SiteGround, they discovered breaches on the website caused by problems with the hosting, where basically someone had hacked into a couple of my accounts via the web host because the web host was so insecure, and SiteGround immediately picked up on that and completely disabled all of my websites so that they couldn't possibly cause any damage to anyone else's sites. SiteGround takes security really seriously, and it's because of that websites on SiteGround seem to run really quickly, because you haven't got websites that are completely hacked and full of malware and all sorts of things that generally cause websites to run like a piece of junk. As per usual, there's a link you can use for SiteGround in the description below. There you go, folks. I hope you found that useful. You should have a nice, hardened, secure WordPress installation now. This is one of these topics where you can keep going down a rabbit hole and making it more and more secure. If you've got other tips for securing a WordPress website, do pop them down in the comments below. And if you want to drill into this in more detail, if you're getting a website with a lot of traffic coming to it, then there are other precautions that you can take as well. We're also going to talk about backups more next time, so don't forget to hit subscribe. Backups are really important so that if you do have a major problem, you can at least get your website back to a functioning state pretty quickly. I'll include a couple of links to articles down below where you can drill down into WordPress security and backups in a bit more detail. I do advise you read those. Some of them start to get a little bit heavy and a bit geeky. As long as you've done everything we've talked about in this video, you should be absolutely fine. Thanks once again for watching. I shall see you next time. Bye bye.